I've been speaking about what happens legally when you take your big data operations to the cloud, and it involves looking at what big data is in legal terms, and then looking what happens over and above that when you take your big data to the cloud. Cloud's all about sort of on-demand services. You're moving your data and software off-premise into the cloud, and the key driver for it at the moment is cost. And that makes quite a bit of tension between the cost that you're paying to the cloud provider and the importance of the data to you. So you may be paying very little for services that are incredibly important to you, and the key legal issue is around sort of mediating that tension. There are two when you take your big data to the cloud, you've got two sets of data protection issues. Firstly, the issues that are inherent in big data. That's all around fair processing and consent, and how that sort of principle collides with big data use, where you want to be getting these unexpected correlations from the large data sets. So that's implicit in big data anyway. When you take it into the cloud, those data protection issues are compounded by the role of the cloud provider. Are they a data processor or a data controller? Where you have international transfers, where you're taking your data out of the EU, there are a whole bunch of other issues, and data sovereignty, when the secret services can come and get access to your data in the cloud. Data sovereignty is really high up there at the moment. You open a newspaper or you go onto a news service, and more often than not, it's kind of got this somewhere in its output. It's really important because there's this kind of visceral anxiety that people have about, when my data is no longer on my site, what can the people do to it whose site it's on? And that really, you've got Snowden, you've got the Google Right to be Forgotten case, you've got a bunch of issues which keep this high in mind. And I'm in favour of a sort of more rational approach to it, which is to look at generally what happens and then try to manage these extreme circumstances that generally don't happen very often. The EU has its own data protection code, as you know, the Data Protection Directive, that's shortly to be overhauled by the new data protection regulation that's going through. And the worry is that this provides a different or a higher standard for the protection of personal data than other countries have. And this is a particular source of concern between the USA, North America, and the EU, although that's not the only set of countries that are concerned. In the States, they have a different approach to data protection. It's not necessarily of a lower standard, but it's based around consent and notice. And it operates in a slightly different way to the EU. And because some countries in the EU have a very, very protective approach to their citizens' personal data, they think that the protection that they give is a lot higher. So you've got a whole bunch of issues around the politics of it, around the mechanics of data transfer and the steps that you've got to go through. I think this is where it all gets to in the real world is a structured approach to information governance. An organisation needs to look at what it's doing with its big data at the moment. Where's it getting it from? Has it got all the consents that it needs? Where's it sending it to? Has it got all the consents it needs for there? And then you need to have a sort of strategy statement, which is everybody senior in the company, all the stakeholders getting together and saying, well, this is kind of where we want to be with big data. We respect other people's rights just as we expect them to respect our rights. And then you've got a kind of policy statement, which is basically the project plan, if you like, for your big data project. Who's doing what are the budgets, what are the timescales? Make sure that technical, legal, all the other factors are taken into account. And then you've got kind of processes and procedures, you've got policy statements, you've got the way that it operates in practice. And again, I think that's probably the way this is going. These structured governance for information is quite new at the moment, but I think in 5 years' time it'll be a lot more common.